Hi, I'm Britt,
And my name is Alissa.
and this is SkeleTales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
We do. We also share true tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal.
Heck yeah, we do, Britt. Man, Britt, I'm having trouble remembering what we're talking about this week.
Oh, how ironic that you have a lack of memory, because we are talking about the strange and unusual cases of amnesia.
Ooh. What do you say when you hear amnesia? Is that like, I wish there was a noise for memory. What do you, that's like an eraser, erasing your memories? I don't know. I love this idea. It's so fascinating. And I think I'm so fascinated by it because of the movie Overboard. I've realized a lot of my basis of amnesia goes back to Goldie Hawn movie Overboard and with Kurt Russell.
There are so many amazing amnesia movies out there, and that is the one. But truth be told, I absolutely love that movie too. So
Yes.
I get it.
Wait, what other ones? Oh, Memento.
Memento. Just Memento, really. I think.
Just Memento. That amnesia, it's catchy.
Overboard 2.
So I wanted to see if I could quickly start off by just telling us a little bit about the different kinds of amnesia real quick, apparently.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, because the guy in Memento had a different kind of amnesia than Goldie Hawn in Overboard. Like Goldie Hawn's memory completely erased after she fell off the yacht. Spoiler. But then Memento guy woke up and every day was a completely new day for him, like, or the same day, right? Like he had no memory. He only had, did he have old memories? He couldn't make any new memories, basically.
Yeah,
But,
he had to write them, tattoo them on himself.
Yeah. And so every day he had to relearn them. So there are three different types of amnesia. There are two main forms. Oh, I read there is three. Sorry, that's called dyslexia, not amnesia. That's a whole different episode and probably not nearly as interesting. Okay. There are two main forms of amnesia. Retrograde amnesia is when you can't recall memories from your past. Goldie Hawn, Overboard. Anterograde amnesia is when you can't form new memories, but can still remember things from before you develop this amnesia. And then there's other forms of amnesia that include post-traumatic amnesia. And this is the amnesia you develop after an injury. It can involve multiple forms of amnesia. There's transient global amnesia. This is a short-lived condition that involves anterograde and retrograde amnesia. It almost always lasts less than 24 hours. Infantile amnesia. This is the amnesia when you were a baby. Almost everyone has this. Remembering things from infancy is rare. Isn't that interesting?
So everybody has amnesia because none of us can remember what we did when we were babies.
Right? Yeah. I wonder if anyone can remember. Do you think there's people out there who like literally can remember being in the womb and being birthed? There's some people like that remember every single moment of their day.
I watched an episode of Monk once and he remembered being born. So I'm sure it's legit. I hate that show.
I've never seen it. Dissociative amnesia. This is amnesia that happens because of a mental health related cause, traumatic events, abuse, and other severe sources of psychological distress can cause it. Experts suspect it's a defense mechanism your brain uses to protect you from what you experience. So it says that amnesia is uncommon on its own, but it's a very common symptom of certain conditions, which usually involve brain damage or activity disruptions like Alzheimer's disease. But there's also, I want to say it's called the retrograde one, that are involved with accidents. Like a lot of times people wake up and they don't remember the events leading up to their injury. Like they'll remember jumping out of the plane. And then the next thing they remember is waking up in the hospital or whatever. And so that's a form of amnesia. I want to say it's kind of a retrograde, but that you never recover. There's like no hope for whatever reason. Those are gone forever. So that's all I got.
This has like sparked my excitement to share my stories with you because you've just explained the two types of amnesia that my two stories have. So it's like now we have a name for what they are.
Yeah. And what can cause them. And I think it's interesting. Okay. Do you want to go first or am I going first? We didn't talk about this.
I'll go first since you just told us all about the amnesias.
Okay. I want to hear.
Also, I'm really excited. Okay. This story is about a fella named W.O. We're not sure what his full name is. Those are just his initials, W.O.
Whoa.
He woke up on the morning of March 14th, 2005, at his military post in Germany. He headed to the gym where he played a 45-minute round of volleyball, then returned to his office and answered a backlog of emails. In the afternoon, he went to his dentist for a routine root canal treatment. He clambered into the reclining chair, donned a pair of tinted glasses, felt his mouth go numb as the dentist inserted the local anesthetic. And then every day since, no matter what the actual date happens to be, W.O. wakes up thinking that it is the morning of March 14th, 2005, believing that he is still in Germany and that this day is the day of his dentist appointment. Yeah. His life is something of a quote-unquote groundhog day, but in reverse. While the rest of the world moves on, W.O. is the only person who isn't aware of time passing. Starting from that moment in the dentist chair a decade ago, he hasn't been able to remember almost anything for longer than 90 minutes. Then he forgets it, a switch flips, and he's back to March 14th, 2005 once more. The case is a medical mystery. Now, W.O. is a 38-year-old member of the British Armed Forces and kind of has an unremarkable medical background. He was a happy husband, father of two, was in good standing at work. His only health complaints were like fairly typical aches of the middle age, back, hypertension. There was nothing about the ordinary hour-long root canal procedure to indicate that something catastrophic was happening. His doctors aren't even absolutely sure that the operation is what triggered this memory loss.
Well, I mean, of course, they're like, nah, it's probably something else.
Don't blame the doctor. The main thing that continues to captivate and confuse doctors the most is that there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with his brain. They've done all of the scans. He is completely independent on an electronic diary that reminds him of what he's doing and what has happened in the past 10 years since his new memory. Every morning, he checks his computer for a list of life events that he should be aware of, marriages, deaths, his children's birthdays, some of them, like the loss of his beloved pet, to continue to surprise him. I know, every continual, several times a day having to relive that. For now, it's a mystery why a routine root canal seems to have cost W.O. his ability to record any new memories in the past decade. Now, in the past 10 years since that faithful trip to the dentist, his memories are relentlessly eroded at 90-minute intervals. W.O. has been able to retain just one new fact in all that time. It's the knowledge of his father's death. W.O. doesn't recall the moment his father passed, nor the tirelessness bedside vigil that preceded it, but something, his intense emotional connection to his father, or perhaps the fact that it was the only thing W.O. thought of during the 90 minutes after it happened, keeps his awareness of that event alive. It's the sole piece of driftwood W.O. has clung to as the tide washes away everything else.
Wow, that's wild.
I got a lot of that information from the Washington Post. Thank you, Washington Post.
But what a nightmare that you're waking up every day of your root canal. That's so horrible.
So horrible. First of all, whenever you have a dentist appointment, it's always kind of that feeling of impending doom. And then to have to do that every 90 minutes for the rest of your life.
Yes.
It's truly a nightmare. But if he's not remembering what a nightmare it is it a nightmare? I mean, for his family, for sure.
Oh, that's true. If you're not really bothered by it so much. I mean, I guess having to learn that your dog died every 90 minutes and like cry about that is
I
pretty sad. That
know.
seems pretty bothersome. But
You're just for that hour and a half, like traumatized and crying about Fido, and then it's like back at it
wow, but
again.
they don't know what did it. That's scary and that's freaky.
Makes you want to go to the dentist, doesn't it?
No structural damage. Maybe it was his wisdom teeth.
But they took him out.
Yeah. Wow. Whoa. I mean, that is quite the story.
Alissa, do you have another story?
I think so. I do. Okay, so I stumbled upon this person, Ibicella Lutea, who has amnesia, and they wrote about what it's like to have amnesia. So they say that this is going to be really long, and I apologize for that, but I wanted folks to get a detailed idea of what this is like because most people have only seen the movie versions of it. I've ended up with both anterograde and retrograde amnesia when I slipped on black ice and suffered a traumatic brain injury in 2012. I don't remember anything of the accident, and I have lost a large chunk of my childhood memories as well as my ability to focus, and short-term memories are shot. I remember stepping off my stoop to walk my dog across the parking lot of my apartment complex one frigid evening in January, and that's it. The next thing I knew, I had some woman shaking my shoulder and yelling at me to wake up and hearing sirens in the distance. I blearily and woozily opened my eyes and was very, very cold. I don't remember a whole lot of what happened after that, besides remembering the colors of the lights on the ambulance. I actually was released to go back upstairs and not to the hospital. My choice, no insurance. But the next few months were very rough as I could not walk, speak correctly, or remember anything from day to day. And that never quite went away. I did end up going to my regular GP at the insistence of my family the next day, and they made sure I wasn't bleeding into my brain. I wasn't, and my scan came back, quote unquote, normal, even though I was anything but. There was a whole lot they could do at the time, and so I spent 3 months recovering at home, being aided by friends and family. I estimate I was unconscious for 20 minutes, as right before I left, I had been chatting with friends on IM, Instant Messenger, and told them I was leaving to walk my dog. I looked all that up much later. So I had that timestamp, and the medics recorded the time they reached me, and I had that too. The best way I can describe it to others is to think of my mind as being like a town that's been devastated by an earthquake. Some structures might be relatively unharmed, but the one next to it is rubble. Or I might be able to see the destination, but the road is washed out, so I can't get there. When someone asks, do you remember that? I might or I might not. Most of the time, I get a tug of deja vu, a strange familiarity, but there's no picture or detail, or there's only a partial picture or detail. With my retrograde amnesia, I can remember my high school years pretty clearly, and even my very early years. But anything from about age 6 to about 15 is mostly gone. I don't remember what elementary school I went to without looking it up or anything that happened there. I see the name, and it's like learning the name of it for the first time. My brother was talking about a family trip we took when I was 8 years old to Yellowstone, but I have no recollection of this happening except for the smell from the sulfur and a single instance from the trip of driving through an area that had been devastated by the ash of the Mount St. Helens eruption. The trip was in the 80s. I had my brother give me as much detail as possible, but the most I could feel was that tug of familiarity, but no memory. Everything else about it was like listening to someone else describe a movie they saw. On a day-to-day basis, I walk through the holes of time. It's like having threshold syndrome, that phenomenon of entering a room and forgetting why you were there, except that happens mid-conversation or mid-activity, sometimes multiple times an hour. I just wake up and look around, and it's kind of startling. Then I have to play detective to figure out what I was just doing. If there is a person in front of me, I ask them, sorry, but what were we talking about? If there isn't, I must leave as much notation as I can so I can figure out the clues. Like if I have my dish gloves on, I know to go check the sink to see if I was doing dishes. It happened once in the neurologist's office. He said that we were talking and I just stopped, twisted my head to the side and looked at the ceiling, and then got this bewildered expression on my face. He called my name and asked me where I was. Looking around, I realized I was in a doctor's office, which I guess meant I had a doctor's appointment. I didn't remember I had an appointment or what it was for. I could recognize my doctor's face as someone familiar, but what his name was, I couldn't remember right then. This information may or may not come to me hours later. I forget my name, my address, my birthday, and my phone number on a regular basis. It's not a constant thing. Sometimes if you ask, I can tell you just fine. Sometimes, though, for the life of me, I can't remember my name, or I remember my maiden name only. I must keep all this information in my phone, which I carry with me everywhere, because I've gotten totally lost in my own neighborhood 2 blocks away from my house, which I passed several times. Utterly lost in familiarity and unable to reorient or draw the important information I needed. I knew I was in my neighborhood, but had a devil of a time remembering what my house looked like. After years of dealing with this, it's not really terrifying anymore, more just extremely annoying. Though I try to take deep breaths and just work with it rather than rage on it. I'm very slow in doing things and learning things, and people sometimes get frustrated with me or think I'm stupid. I must take steps to keep myself safe and leave clues for myself constantly and keep important information ready. Bit by bit, though, with my medical team, I'm slowly regaining some memories and building new ones. And I get to enjoy epic movies, books, and TV shows for the first time more than once. So it does have its upside. The end.
She seems very positive about a very tragic situation. Also, I feel if she hasn't already, investing in Post-it note stock is probably good for her, because if it were me, they would just be everywhere. This is your dog, Barry. This is your husband.
Yeah. And what I found fascinating about that is that, like, just a chunk of her life, like from ages 6 to 15, are missing. Like an ice cream scoop, that little chunk out. Yeah. That is that's interesting to me and fascinating, like why that chunk is missing.
My mom slipped on some black ice a couple of years ago and broke her back.
Oh, did you step on a crack, Britt?
I did. And I said, I'm sorry. Speaking of brains and brain function, we partnered with a company called Magic Mind. And recently I've been crazy unfocused, really distracted. Actually, when you were talking about your story, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, that would be me standing in the living room wearing dish gloves, being like, what was I doing? Oh
Yes.
yeah, the dishes. Magic Mind is like this little natural shot drink that's created to help boost productivity, clarity, energy. So when I was able to get my hands on some, I was very excited to try it. Y'all, day 1, taking this little green shot, I cleaned my whole house from top to bottom. Day 2, I started work and I was able to focus the whole day, finish all of the tasks on my list, which is really unheard of. And I did it all with just 1 cup of coffee. It's pretty magical.
I think you told me that there were mushrooms of some sort. So is it growing like mind mushrooms?
There are mushrooms in it. Lion's mane mushroom. Oh my gosh, Mike just found one of those the other day here in Oregon. Cordyceps mushroom. I should clarify, not the one from Last of Us, but still powerful nonetheless. It's an all-natural drink, which is why I felt comfortable drinking it. It has matcha for the energy. It's got ashwagandha for the anxiety. It's got Rhodelia rosea. I'm probably saying that wrong. All sorts of all-natural ingredients. I don't know how they made it work exactly, but I feel less anxious when I'm overwhelmed. I feel very productive. I feel very focused. And I'm really into it.
Very cool. I was just talking to someone today who said he was drinking some cordyceps juice of some sort as well.
It's probably Magic Mind.
I think I need to try some. It's all the rage.
If you would like to try some, you can get 56% off your order at magicmind.com/SkeleTales. 56% off for the next 10 days and use coupon code SkeleTales20.
Very cool. Awesome.
All right, I'm going to give you the code again. It's magicmind.com/SkeleTales with discount code SkeleTales20 for up to 56% off your subscription. I would recommend the 30-pack because it is the best value. You can be focused.
And if you try it, let us know. Let us know how it's changed your life. I'm very curious to hear. So, Britt, do you have another story?
I do. This story comes from Naomi Jacobs, and I got this information from a website called smh.com. Waking up in the throes of a sweaty nightmare, Naomi Jacobs whispers to herself that it had only been just a dream. But the foreign tone of her voice sent her grabbing for her throat. Her speech was deep, as if it belonged to a real grown-up. Worse, sitting up in bed, she recognized nothing. Walls that should have been covered with teenage decoration were dismal gray. The curtains were different. Her Marilyn Monroe duvet cover was nowhere to be seen, and her sister's bunk bed was missing. She stumbled down the foreign hallway and pushed open a bathroom door. When she saw her reflection in the mirror, her jaw dropped in horror. I grabbed my face and screamed, "Oh my God, oh my God, I'm old." Naomi was 32, but she had lost 17 years of her life to a rare amnesia. As far as she was concerned, she was 15 years old. Amid this surreal confusion, one phone number kept repeating in her mind. She dialed Katie, a friend who made some sense of the garbled sobs coming out of the phone, and she advised Naomi to have a coffee and a cigarette, sit down, and calm herself. Both suggestions sounded disgusting to Naomi, who at 15 never liked taste of coffee or cigarettes. She could remember certain phone numbers, how to drive a car, how to use a cash point, which I think is an ATM, but had no recollection of giving birth to her son Leo when she was 21. She was even using the lingo of her youth, calling people schmegheads, as per the 90s show Red Dwarf. This was in Australia, by the way, I should mention, because I don't know what Red Dwarf is or a schmeghead. Teen Naomi could not understand how, despite all the dreams that she'd had for her future, she'd become a single mother in a 2-bedroom council flat. There was so much to catch up on. Naomi spent hours online watching piano-playing cats, kids drugged up after dentist visits, crop circles, conspiracy series, and sobbed over the 9/11 attacks. Her new world was filled with the weird clarity of high-definition TV screens and mobile phones that were no longer the size of backpacks. And the explosion of social media meant that everybody had an opinion. She felt like the whole population was desperate to be heard. Staunchly believing a few nights' sleep would bring her memory back, she held off seeing a doctor for days. But it took months before she would find a psychiatrist who could diagnose her correctly. It was transient global amnesia combined with a dissociative fugue state. Luckily, Naomi had religiously kept diaries throughout her life. Her journals dated back years, and reading them helped jog her memory. It was an emotional roller coaster. I felt joy for the person who'd written in and sadness for her too. Slowly, things came back to me. It was like looking at the ghost of my adult self. I'd hear a song and get a flash of a basement club. So I'd ask my sister if we'd done something like that, and she'd say, yeah. Then I'd start to feel emotions attached to the memory, but not the whole thing. Reading the diaries made Naomi realize she'd been under immense stress leading up to the amnesia. In the past, she'd been diagnosed as bipolar and had psychotic episodes. Each time her life appeared to be straightening out, adult Naomi returned to marijuana and cocaine. She'd been in abusive relationships and had friends who cared little for her welfare. The diaries were her saving grace. It was in those pages she kept secrets about adults who had sexually and physically abused her. She ended up writing a book called I Woke Up in the Future, and it allowed her to let go of those demons. Naomi got her memory back within 8 weeks, but getting to the very bottom of it took years. Now I'm in a very fortunate position, she says. I'm still in my 2-bedroom house with my cat and my son, who's now 17, doing an apprenticeship, and I'll be 40 this year, and I just have this lovely feeling of self-acceptance. I'm not perfect. I still have my bad days, but I have a firmer handle on my mental health. I can run 5K. I sleep better. I no longer take drugs, even if it's a bad day, and I'm sure that I always laugh. I'm not afraid anymore, and when people ask if I could give back the whole thing and be living like the amnesia never happened, no way. I wouldn't change it for the world.
When did she wake up thinking she was a 15-year-old?
When she was 32.
When she was 32. So just life was going on. Life was going on. She was remembering every day, doing the cocaines and the marijuanas all the time. And then one day she just goes to sleep high, and then in the morning she wakes up and memory wipes.
And she's old. Yeah.
The memory wiped. Weird. That's interesting. Okay.
It reminds me of that another movie, 30 Going on.
Oh, yes. 13 Going on 30.
Love that movie.
I didn't watch it. I just know the name of it. Is it an Amnesia one? Or I thought it was something where she like wakes up as an adult, like a big style movie. I've not even seen it.
Oh, no. It's not Amnesia. She's a 13-year-old, and she goes, oh, I just wish I could be 30 or whatever. And yeah, she wakes up as a 30-year-old.
There was a period of time when I didn't have TVs and I didn't watch TV, but I read about TV and movies. So that's...
You're such a nerd. I mean, I love you.
All right. So I have a story about a firefighter from Canada, and this is from the Times-Union. It says, 1 year ago, Danny Philippidis was standing in Sacramento, California, wondering where exactly he was. Unknown to him, the 50-year-old Toronto firefighter was the subject of a massive manhunt on the other side of the country. Searchers on and around Whiteface Mountain were searching for the Toronto firefighter who vanished February 7th while he was on an annual ski trip with his coworkers. The hunt included at least 6 government agencies, 2 ski patrols, and several local volunteers. More than 135 people spent a combined 7,000 hours on the rugged mountain in varying winter weather conditions looking for Danny.
Oh my gosh.
Helicopters, search dogs, the whole 9 yards. The works, the whole 9 works. Okay. It was a big deal. You don't often hear that phrase. They only reserve it for like the really big cases. A truck driver had dropped Philippidis off in Sacramento, and Danny couldn't remember how he'd gotten there or who he was. Danny's story captured international attention, but a year later, there's still no clear answer as to what exactly happened to him or the mystery of who drove him across the United States. Danny declined an interview request last week. He's happy with his progress and wants to continue to move forward, said the representative from the fire station. He's since returned to work, but over the last year, he's only publicly spoken once about it, telling the Canadian press in August he thinks it all began when he took a wrong turn on a solo trip down to his car. He wanted to grab his phone to take photos of his group. When he still hadn't returned to the ski lodge by 4 p.m., his friends began looking for him. Investigators later determined that Danny likely fell near a children's ski slope and ended up at a hub used for children's programming that would have been closed at the time. 3 sets of tests and multiple visits to neurologists and neuropsychologists in Toronto confirmed that he suffered some kind of brain injury. At some point, he came across a truck driver. State police had never been able to determine who the man was or where the truck was coming from. 6 days later, he turned up in California. He had somehow gotten a haircut and bought a new iPhone. And he's still wearing his ski gear. Sacramento County Sheriff spokesman Sean Hampton said deputies found Philippidis wandering around the rental car area of the airport. He was clearly in need of medical attention and was still wearing his ski gear. Hampton said the deputies believe Danny spent the night near Richards Boulevard along the Interstate 5 corridor. It's unclear how Danny moved from that location to where he was found, but Danny told the Canadian press that he and his family are just happy he's back at work and not suffering from any major consequences from his injury beyond gaps in his memory of his trip to California. There was a lot of he had a Canadian accent. Oh yeah, don't you know? Oh yeah, wait, what do they always say? Sorry. There was a lot of despair and a lot of stress on them in the sense that it just didn't look reasonable that I would be found okay. Yeah, he said in August, but we can talk about almost anything now, don't you know?
Oh God, so good.
Where is the truck driver? Like, come on.
Oh my God, where's the truck driver? The stories that truck driver has. What occurred in those 6 days? That could be a whole movie in itself. What happened to Danny from the ski slopes to California where he's still in his snow gear and a haircut.
He got a freaking haircut, bought an iPhone, but then couldn't remember anyone's phone numbers for a day.
No, so he's just watching the airport.
I mean, it's sad, but I think that he's guarded in this because he also doesn't want people to think he was crazy, because not crazy, but it was a fugue state.
I came across, when looking at stories, Agatha Christie.
Oh, I'd heard that one before.
Famous author. I'd never known this. Just for a few days, 11 days is missing, and they find her 200 miles from where her abandoned car was. She had no recollection of where she was or what she did during those 11 days. And some people speculate that her husband, Archibald, had been unfaithful and that she did it in spite.
Yeah, I had heard that, and I'm definitely sus of that story. But you know what's actually interesting? Because the first time I heard that story, I was like, bullshit. She just was like, yeah, that's convenient. I'd love to disappear for 30 days and then be like, oh, I don't remember anything. What was I missing?
Meanwhile, we're like lounging by the beach somewhere.
Exactly. But later on, I remember hearing a story about that they think that there's a study analyzing her writings, and she actually like had signs of Alzheimer's or had Alzheimer's, and they could detect it. So again, it is plausible if there's this neurological network that causes these like brain gaps. And I guess in her case, it could have genuinely be stress related, but because I did say bullshit, but I'm like, oh man, maybe she really did have something going on there. But there were a few cases of actual fugues that I came upon. There was one teacher who it happened to her like 3 times. I think she was in like New Jersey, disappeared. They found her in like Florida a few days later, a few weeks later, like in a pool. So there were 3 incidences. She kept disappearing, and every time they found her, she was like in the water. And then the last time it happened was during a hurricane in like, was it Hawaii or the hurricane in Florida? She was living in Florida, started kind of like showing the signs of like a fugue state coming on. And the last someone saw her was walking into the ocean. So something about whatever her fugue states did drew her to the water, and she's been missing ever since.
Oh no.
And then but she would then remember. She didn't have to relearn everything. But then there was another fella who it happens to repeatedly. And the first time it was in the newspapers because he was on the news, and he went to Denver. He was started off in California.
Yes, I remember this story. I remember this one.
And then like they identified him. He just got in the news. He's like, does anyone recognize me? Because I don't know who I am. And then people recognized him. And since
it was like his fiance in a different state was like, I'm your fiance. And he didn't know.
Yeah, no, he had to relearn. And that's happened 2 times since that one, I guess. Twice more it's happened, and he has to relearn that this person is his fiance. Like he has to like relearn his life again, and
every time,
and like fall back in love. That's wild.
Alissa, these were fascinating stories. I know this is not our traditional spooky tales, but in a way it is kind of spooky because, like, do you want to go to the dentist? Do you want to go on a ski trip? Do you want to take a yacht trip and fall off a boat? I mean, essentially this whole episode has been just a recap of Overboard. The movie from 1979. When was that
I have
made?
no idea. I don't know. Speaking of movies, apparently the movie Bourne Identity is based on a fella called Ansel Bourne, who had a fugue state, left his brother's house or his nephew's house like in January, and then suddenly found himself operating a business in Norristown, Pennsylvania 3 months later under the name AJ Brown. Like
completely different.
But AJ Brown never questioned where he had come from. Like, what was his backstory?
Yeah, that's bizarre. It makes me want to go see the Jason Bourne movie.
I'm sure. Wait, where's the story about the guy from the 1800s?
In conclusion,
Yeah.
Go watch Overboard.
Yes.
Go watch Memento. Go watch 13 Going on 30.
That's not about amnesia, but
Go watch Bourne Identity. Bourne Identity. Ooh, this was fun, Alyssa. I like this topic. It was different.
It was. You know what? We do strange and unusual. Not all paranormal.
If you have an amnesia story or a movie recommendation, call us. No, first, before you call us, email us in our hotbox.
Heck yeah. Send us your amnesia stories if you remember them to SkeleTalesPodcast@gmail.com, or you can call the hotline, which I never remember because I'm in a constant fugue state.
Don't worry. I gotcha. 302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. We are on all the socials. You can DM us. Oh, wait. Is it DMing?
Slide into them DMs.
You can slide into our DMs over there. You can also join our fun convos and post on our social medias. We have a merch shop, SkeleTalesPodcast.etsy.com, Patreon.com/SkeleTalesPodcast, YouTube, SkeleTales Pod.
Oh, the Facebook group? Facebook community?
Facebook community. We're posting some great stuff over there. Actually, other people are posting great stuff over there, and we're really enjoying it. And if you want to get yourself some magic mind and have clarity and energy, magicmind.com/SkeleTales Podcast. Go ahead and get your 56% off with the coupon code SkeleTales20. Is there anything else, Alyssa?
I can't ever remember, Britt. Oh, wait. No, I did remember. Hunt you later.
Hi, y'all later. Good night.